But just to quickly tell you, and thanks Mohit and thanks Raju for starting this off. Like Ma, for me, Ma is not just what you talked about. It's beautiful. For me, Ma is not that female parent, as my children call my wife, female parent. But it's about that trait of nurture, the trait of understanding, the trait of love, the trait of security, which all of us as males and females have it. So Ma calls for that parent in us. The way we also call Bharat Ma, and we may stay all across the world, but when we set our foot on our country, it gives you a sense of security and belongingness, right? And that wo god na dad ki ho ya mom ki ho doesn't matter. It gives you a feel of that Ma. So for me, Ma is that. And thanks for starting. And who else to start it with than Surup? She's not just a mother to two children, two biological children, of children across the country. In the hinterland to places to villages where she's been and trained teachers and parents across places which may take 2 to 3 days to reach. So amazing work, Surup. Thanks for joining us, and I'm really
My
inspired.
pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you,
Gujarat
Shashank.
and Rajasthan and UP and all those areas, even villages of Delhi where you took us, it's been beautiful.
Yes,
Those
that's
people
right.
swear by you. So I just wanted to take a quick minute and talk about to you to take on. My journey as a parent, as a ma, started when I was actually Monica, my wife, was pregnant. By the way, actually today is her birthday, so birthday of a ma.
Oh, you must wish a happy birthday for us, all of us.
So I was waiting for her after a meeting in the Anupam complex, and I happened to just climb down the stairs of a bookstore in the basement, and there was this book which by Dr. Wayne Dyer said, "What do you really want for your children?" And at that point of time, Monica was pregnant. What do you really want for your children? And I picked that book, and that's where the journey of a parent, the journey of a human being, as Sushant, I didn't never knew myself before. And that question intrigued me so much. She said, "What do I really want?" And I said, "Has any parent thought of that? Has any parent thought of what do I really want?" We all become a parent and we start the journey of a parent without knowing where are we taking our children. And that question from that book got me and Monica want for our children. We want him to be happy. We want him to be self-expressed. We want him to be high on confidence, doesn't give up in his life, enjoying his life to the fullest, doing what he really wants to do. And when we saw that list, we said, this is what we want to do. And that became our role, a job as a parent. We said, yaar, padhana, likhana, subah uthana, wo to sab karte hain, yaar. Can we focus on these elements which came up that day when we discussed it? And that came the birth of Parvarish. So when I spoke to Surup, I said, Surup, we want you to be there in parenting book club. She said, parenting mujhe nahi karni hai parenting. Mujhe parenting ki baat nahi karni hai. I've enjoyed my time. This is not what I want to talk about. I said, Surup, parenting is all about competencies and life skills. She said, हाँ, iski baat karni hai mujhe. And then we saw, and by the way, that's how me and Sarup met. We met at a conference where I saw her walking in. I said, यार, ये conference वाले ना ये glamour quotient लेके आने के लिए हम लोगों को लगाते हैं. ये क्या कर रहे हैं यार? This is an education one, and I didn't know anything about her education background. She was working in education for 30 years by then, and then she came and she spoke, and I said, wow, man, this is not. And I get intimidated by beauty. I said, man, this is like, what do I do? And from our fights, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you. From being
Oh, we are always fighting, aren't we?
Two, we saw that there is so much of compliment. We complimented so much, and that's where we connected. So this is what about the first book, and thanks to Dr. Wayne Dyer, he went off to the different world 3 years back, but he gave us the word called no limit. He said every human being born, every child born is the no limit child, and that's what's the beginning of Parvarishan. That's the crux of what we are today. So great thought, great book, great question to start from. What do we really want? And that starts our journey towards this beautiful journey called parenting. And when we were talking about it, Sarup said, Shashank, you're bringing in a lot of serious stuff here, okay? I don't want to bring in serious stuff. So first book she picked up was My Family and Animals. My Family and Animals. That's interesting. So Sarup, what do you? What got you to make that first book?
My Family and Other Animals. Actually, that is probably one book which I remember way back. I studied it in the 9th standard and I loved it. Actually, I wanted to get it to show it to you. I still have a copy That was a good many years ago. It was like probably 1972 or 71 when I studied it. Of course, there were other books which I liked, but this one has played a very important role in my life at the moment. I don't know how to put it in another way. So it is about this wonderful, crazy family which goes to Corfu because, they want to go to an island where there is warm weather and all that. And there is this fantastic guy, Jerry Durrell, who's written it. From the beginning to the end, it's about his crazy family and the crazy animals. The family, the beauty of this book is the family are always at each other, but they still have this incredible bond and they just love each other. So, you kind of learning how to love your family in spite of having all sorts of craziness in it. But what I really learned from it was the great descriptions he had. You about one, which, it just stays in my mind because it was such a hilarious scene. Now, as you know, Jerry loved animals, and he can, he's very famous for that. And all various animals that come into their life, like a lizard and dogs and cats, but that's normal. What about a Scorpio? So Jerry would, he spent a lot of time watching scorpions behind the walls. Like his mother, and he wants to bring the scorpions in. And his mother says, there's no ways I'm going to allow you to have a farm of scorpions in the house and stuff like that. So he agrees, and he kind of puts the scorpions there in this wall. I want to read this to you. One of Jerry's favorite places is the crumbling walls that surround the garden, the plastered bricks, and through the plastic over the whole thing. And he would spend hours watching different creatures stalk this wall. Jerry especially enamored by the scorpions that live under the loose platter. Now, just bear with me and listen to this beauty. He finds them charming, unassuming, and mostly safe. Mostly safe. He observes every bit of their courtship ritual, which undertake at night. The family forbid Jerry to bring the colony into the house, much to his displeasure. Now, one day, he sees the mother scorpion with a whole lot of, and she's covered with little babies. Did you know that? The scorpion's covered by little babies. So he puts that scorpion into a matchbox and brings the matchbox inside the house. Now, after lunch, his poor brother Larry decides to have a cigarette and opens the matchbox to light the cigarette. And then there's pandemonium. Scorpions go flying and the babies go flying all over, and everybody's sitting for lunch, and the scorpions all over the dining table and under the plates and on the cutlery. And oh my God, that's the most hilarious scene I can still imagine. And imagine that really happening in your house. So when I said just hang on and stay with me, I learned how to write in details, how to look deep into the scene and actually write the scene as you would see it and make it happen. Make it happen for the reader. You see, that's what I learned. And that's what you will find in most of my writing. Luckily, I am a qualitative researcher. And for qualitative research, you need to go very in depth into your characters, into your situations, into locations, and everything. That's where I learned it. To go deep into and make that visual scene so beautiful that the people reading your paper, it could be an academic paper, it just doesn't matter. Who said academic papers have to be boring? I, for one, cannot be boring because I totally believe in fun, and more fun. So, this is what I learned at a very, very young age in the ninth grade about how to write in details, because details is where everything lies. That's what qualitative research is about. The other thing I learned is about your family and loving your family. So that's not far from what Shashank talks about. So over to you.
Thanks, Sarup. Thanks for narrating it
Of
beautifully.
course, there are many more scenes about like they go shopping for a sofa set, and the whole village is like in rows and it's crowded, and they get into this line, and somebody said, the patron saint is its birthday, and today they open the coffin so you can kiss the patron saint. Now the sister is right ahead, and the mother says, for heaven's sakes, don't kiss the saint, because God knows how many people have actually kissed the saint before you. So can you imagine a line? Just imagine the visual. The sister in the front, the brother and the mother behind, frantically telling, don't kiss, don't kiss, don't kiss. And guess what she does?
Kisses.
She does. She kisses the saint so that, her acne can disappear. Just imagine what fun. Yeah, sorry, over to you.
Great, Sarup. So so one more thing, I don't know whether it was a purpose or not, but what I could get is exactly, I think it's the space of every parent. Okay, every parent, I can imagine the house, and what you could find out was the fun, the enjoyment, and the details of it, and the whole fun of a family, even in a chaos. So I think all of us could relate to, and
My
I could
family
really
is like
imagine my
that.
children doing those bizarre things and blowing up
Absolutely,
stuff,
absolutely. Yes.
and you saying how can we actually have fun doing it, and that's I think the journey of a parent. Great. Moving to the next one, okay, Rashu, the next one which I really got inspired by, like I see this face and it something happens in my body. I know, very controversial. A lot of people say, he did wrong, he did that, he did that. But the one thing, like really love, he's my hero, purely from the level of tenacity. Uh, you stick your neck out, people are going to say, cut it off. But the courage to stick the neck out and say, and build a purpose for your life, which is bigger than yourself, bigger than your own life. So a lot of time I quote, I don't know, it's Gandhi's quote or mine, but I say that Gandhi also would have had problems. How is he looking? What is he wearing? Uski chappal theek hai, nahi theek hai. Uski dal mein namak kam to nahi hai. But I don't think he got bothered by this because his mission was free ahimsa. I said, wow, man, if that becomes a purpose, if I build a purpose for my life, which is bigger than me, then all these small issues, which I can call small, become small. They become completely insignificant. So when you were writing that whole mission, the vision statement for Parvarish, I said each and every child in the world, uh, accessing their no limitness. And when we wrote it, we said that's not possible. I would have to take a few hundred like times lives to make it happen. But that was big enough to wake me up. And in my entire career, I worked as a vice president in multinational. From a very junior person to the highest most post, my CEO could not get me to work on a Saturday or a Sunday. Impossible. But here I am on a Sunday enjoying what I'm doing on my wife's birthday, and she's fine and I'm fine with it. It's like the purpose is so big that it pulls me up at 2 o'clock at night to say, Sushant, session lena hai, and I'll wake up. And that, hats off to this guy. Unbelievable tenacity, a purpose for your own life. And that's exactly I could do for children, for my children, for people around. What do you really want to be, not become? What do you want to be in your life? And once children get that, and when parents get that, they live a life and you see them growing, thriving, happy. And happiness is not absence of sadness. Happiness is actually taking sadness along. So that was the second thing. And when we thought what book, I couldn't choose between Wayne Dyer and Gandhi. So, and if you haven't read this book, my request would be just read it. Even if you are the biggest distractors of this guy, read it from that. He is phenomenal.
So I'm going to go straight on and say this beautiful line which changed it all. That line is, the possible slow fuse is lit by imagination. Oh, wow. That is so great. That imagination can make anything possible. And I think that's one of the mantras of my life. So I'm going to talk about another book, another author, another actually a poet called Emily Dickinson. Wildly original, inventive, even though she was reclusive, a very prolific writer, and she was, she's written something like 1,800 poems, and she uses something which I did not, John Bujke use, but it was later on that I realized that she does that too, short sentences and dashes and slant rhymes. I love that. So I'm going to say poetries for you now. I died for beauty, but was scarce, adjusted in the tomb, when one who died for truth was lain in an adjoining room. He questioned softly why I failed. For beauty, I replied, and I for truth, themselves are one. We brethren are, he said, and so as kinsmen met at night, we talked between the rooms until the moss had reached our lips and covered up our names. Oh, truth and beauty, even Keats talks about it. So I think this is fabulous because truth and beauty are so, they're not synonymous, but they are so synonymous in their meaning. Isn't that nice? And there's one more, which I think is so cute. Of course, one of the things that is very common in hers is she talked a lot about death, truth, and beauty, of breaking up, of losing loved ones. But I'm going to leave that to the last. But before that, I'm going to say, heart, we will forget him, you and I tonight. You may forget the warmth he gave, I will forget the light. When you have done, I my thoughts may dim. Haste, lest you're lagging, I may remember him. Isn't that wonderful? I mean, just think of the beautiful atmosphere she's created with just a few words. And this poem, uh, because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. So this is my for her. And there's so many beautiful, beautiful poems. I could just go on saying them, but I have to stop because I have to leave time for the other authors too. So Shashank, over to you.
So before we move on, what out of these, like, what hit you personally? Like what shift Emily brought in your life, or your as a person, as a human being, as a mother, whatever?
This best is the possible slow fuse is lit by imagination. And you know what? In our country, we all go, don't have dreams, don't imagine, don't imagine, don't imagine. But the best thing is to imagine. And if you can imagine, it lights a small, slow fuse of possibility. So if you can imagine how my PhD would be written, or I imagined how my classes will be, or I imagined how wonderful it would be that all the countries, all the children of my country are educated. And that lit the slow fuse of possibility. And that was what made me take the step of never ever, um, you know, taking a job in a university or a school so that I am and I talk to everybody. And that's one of the reasons I've been able to go, through the vast areas of India and in fact even abroad and, teach because I think it's very important to bring education into the lives of our children.
Wow, wow. But Sarup, just to add, okay, as you were narrating it and saying out the poem, one thing which I've seen in our life is like, when two human beings are conversing in relationships, fights, we have, okay, तूने ऐसा क्यों बोला, इसने ऐसा क्यों बोला. If you just add this line which you just said, And rather than saying तूने ऐसा क्यों बोला, and we said, let's wonder why did she say it that way. Let's wonder why did he do this. That whole look, the whole view of that dialogue, that conversation, which could be difficult conversation for all of us, so just because we start wondering about, okay, what made him say this.
And Shashank, that's what I think is the beauty of poetry. And you know, when you think of the great poems like Javed Chand Meghani and Faiz Ahmad Faiz, and even you know, Keats, and like, you know, or you think you know, you need to do something in life, you talk of the roads you need to take, you get so inspired by poetry. And I think that's the beauty of it. Now, this is absolutely the opposite of what I talked in the first time, is, you know, going in, of course, going in depth, but with lots of words and descriptions. This is going in depth with just a word or two.
Imagine. There's a beautiful book called What Did You Ask at School Today? And the first question when I read this title of this book was, what did you ask at school today? I think I was told not to ask questions at school. Oh, ये बकवास question है, मैम ये दोबारा समझा दो, नहीं तूने समझ में नहीं आया, तू बेवकूफ है. And then take a cue from Sarup, you just said about Emily. It's like imagination, those questions, and the whole deal about the work we do with parents and teachers is like, let them question, let them ask questions, and the beauty doesn't lie in the answers. The beauty lies in the questions, and those questions, answers to it, and you're finding your own answers, you creating your own path of your life, your own path, and then you driving on that path. So I keep telling something like a parent, like, guys, if just imagine if children ask those questions from themselves and they start finding answers to themselves, they will drive their own cars, they will drive their own lives. The steering wheel is in their hands versus you telling them where to go, and they will, sky is not the limit. So Wayne Dyer said, no limit and anything is possible. Whatever you can't even think of is possible. Gandhi said, be tenacious, don't give up, create a bigger purpose. And this book just came in and said, ask for it, ask questions, build your own style, and just having, I've seen a couple of your videos, Sarup, about how you build those classrooms with teachers. And classrooms for teachers is not about asking them questions. It's all about they asking questions, they getting deeper into it. The whole definition of studying is you exploring, actually studying a matter, and you're getting your brains into it. So this was the next thing which really got me completely turned around. It, like, for me, schooling completely shifted 180 degrees. And I said, wow, man, this is what it is all about. This is what education is all about. And a quote from Einstein. Einstein said, not Einstein, sorry. I don't even remember whether it is Einstein or Edison.
It doesn't matter. Tell me what is it.
He said, why I could invent so much is because I carried my childhood, a childhood of questioning, into my adulthood, where I could start finding answers to those questions rather than suppressing those questions. So who said the retard, he was behind his class, and he said, because I kept my questions into my adulthood where I could start looking for answers, is where all these inventions happened. So that started from this book. Like, what did you ask at school today? What did you learn at school today is not the game. What did you ask there? So and it ties up very beautifully, like wonder, imagination. So thanks, Aru. Thanks for
That's lovely. And it's so surprising. Actually, it's not surprising because I think you're a teacher. And I am an actor, I'm a teacher and a storyteller. That your list has mostly non-fiction and mine have fiction. To the next one on my list taught me a lot. It's called To Kill a Mockingbird, a book by Harper Lee. It's very well known for its sensitive treatment of a child's awakening in racism and prejudice in America, in the South America, in Alabama during the Great Depression. The story is centered around a little girl called Jean-Louise Scout, who's very, very intelligent for her age, and of course her brother and her father, who's a widower. And it's about a case that her father is fighting for a person who's from African origin, Tom, and he's been falsely accused of raping someone, and um, it's really a book worth reading. It's so beautifully written. But there's something from this book which I hold very dear to me. Every time I teach life skills, every time. And this year's students were extremely lucky. I have Dr. Shivani Mishra over here somewhere. I taught at Sardar Patel University, and I was teaching children, young adults who are doing their masters in social work, empathy, and this time it was online. And because it was online, I could actually show them a scene from the film. The rest of them have just heard the quote. So I'm going to share the quote for you. And it is, you never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb inside around in it. Oh, that's beautiful. That's about empathy. You don't know. It goes beyond wearing the person's shoe. This is so beautiful. When the father tells this daughter that you don't understand the person unless you wear their skin and walk around for some time wearing their skin. And it's such a fabulous idea that, if you want to learn about empathy, you really need to. And this line is so beautiful. In fact, I've quoted it in my PhD too. And yeah, so this is something which is very, very important for me. And this is a very important lesson I learned from To Kill a Mockingbird.
Thanks, Ruth. Thanks again. Like I'm saying, these discussions are, I don't know, people will be enjoying it. I'm loving it. I'm getting so much of it for myself and my children. Something which is like, we all believe that we know our child. We know why is he or she behaving a certain way, not wanting to have food, not on bad stuff from a parent's point of view. But the point is, we don't know. We haven't got under that skin. We think it's ours. It's not ours. It's theirs, and it's very different. It's a different human being with a different taste, with a different thought, with a different feeling. And really getting under their skin and knowing exactly what is happening to them, and then the whole wonder about it.
It's wonderful. It just gives me goose pimples to think about it.
Great. Thanks. Thank you. So the next thing, okay, there's this amazing book by a guy called John Ford. I think a lot of anybody who's in the education world, or even I know most of you would be parents, definitely go through this book. It's called Why Children Fail. How Children Fail. It's such a beautiful, and I can relate. I read this book. It took me months to read it first. And I've read it 3-4 times, and every time I read it, just kept getting deeper for me. And the way this guy was sitting in a classroom and used to observe children and observe their minutest of movements. Something I remember, and I want to relate to it because I could relate myself to it. Okay, and I'm sure everybody will go to the school if I relate to that particular incident in the book. Etched in my heart, in my head, like nobody's business. It's like, so he was observing these children. So he would observe that there are a couple of children class ask a question. These 2-3 children will always raise a hand, but always be the second or the third or the fourth to raise the hand, not the first one. And I could say there were times when I would want to answer, but I would wait for somebody to raise the hand and then raise my hand. And he was talking to these children, analyzing their answers and looking at them and seeing, and the book very beautifully analyzes it. That what happens to us is that at school, we do not want to be the first one because we're unsure. But we also don't want to be the one who don't raise the hand. So teacher says we didn't participate. So we could play this game of participating and yet not participating, sticking their neck out and yet not sticking their neck out. So the teacher says, हाँ, इसका हाथ हमेशा उठता है. So you're counted as one of those children, but yet you're not the ones who get asked. So it's like the way he said that children actually their mind moves and they're able to, from a security, from a perspective of how can I protect myself difficult schooling world. The book was so minutely into all these stuff and observations, and I think that was whole game behind my whole world altering after I quit my corporate world and went into this whole world of nurturing and parenting and bringing up children was like, can we go behind every element? Why is a child saying like that? Why did he do X, not do Y? And it opened up a huge new world of education and why and how for me. Like for me, this is the Bible of like how you can actually get into depth of it and analyze human behavior, which is very unique. And yet you could find it out that what is this trend going to happen? It's like it's amazing. It's like very beautifully done. So would recommend guys. This will take us to a level why your child does what ability to go there and pull it out. So, and I'm opening up this again. My question to all of you is right now, we don't want this only a me and Swaroop kind of a conversation. Anybody just raise your hand, and if you want to say something or question, feel free. Right, feel free right now, and Rashu will unmute you and you can be there right now.
Sushant and Swaroopji, we have a question.
Oh, great.
Yes.
From Rashmi.
Yeah.
How can we as parents learn from your experience? Is there any way we can attend any sessions with you being a parent?
So Sushant, over to you. Because Sushant is the expert in parenting. And people who haven't read Sushant, there is your book.
It's right there.
Yes, it's such a good book. My kids are so big. I read it because he held a gun to my head. And I said, no, Sushant, I don't want to read it. No, you have to read it. If you're my friend, you will read it. And since I am his friend, I read it. It's such a fabulous book. So, Sushant, you answer.
So a lot of people say, this is what I do for living. No, this is, I would say, Raju, my answer to that question would, this is what I do for, not for a living in terms of living. This is what I do to live. Otherwise, I'll die. So this is my fodder. This is my breath, the water. This is my air I breathe. So feel free, Raju, you can give whatever, you can search for Parvarish anywhere you want to. These programs happen all the time, from a 2-day-long program to a 2-hour program to a 2.5-month program. So I don't want to tell you all about it, but it's all there, Raju. And I would, as I said, the vision and the mission of Parvarish is to reach out to each and every child in this world. And I look at parents and teachers as my partners to make that happen. So welcome aboard.
I'd like to add on to Sushant, like he said, Dr. Wayne Dyer said, we are limitless. So in India, we say Aham Brahmasmi, which is I am the universe. I am the universe. So actually the course that we did with Sushant, and we're planning another round with City Book Leaders on the 4th and the 11th of July. It is how you can make your children be the genius, be the superstar that they already are. So that's the course about. It's a must attend. I've attended it. And what it says, it's like watering the plant. The child is already no limit. The child is already the universe. Like we are the universe. Maybe in the process of growing, we've lost it somewhere. But for the child, our only responsibility is to nurture their no limitness. So that is the course about. Once you do this at every step, trust me, you become so aware of everything you do with your child. Because aapko lagta hai ki, I hope I'm taking care of the expansion. I'm helping the child become the best version. So all of you are invited to be attending for this 2-day course. It teaches life skills for yourself first, and then it can happen with your child. So great, Sushant. We can move on to the next book.
Yeah, and I doubt if you're going to reach my 5th book, but because we don't have much time left, but I'm going to take my time with this. What do you say about a book which has a line like, how do you spell love? You don't spell it, you feel it.
Wow.
What do you say about a book which says, different are the things that make me me. What do you say about a book that has a line, you're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think? This is one of my favorite books, and it continues to be favorite. This book, I couldn't have even got it to show it to you because it holds a very prized place in my library. Winnie the Pooh. I think it's one of the most beautiful books, and it's so much to learn from it. I personally feel, self-help books and stuff like that. What you learn from these books is something that is so fantastic. Like I used to tell my friend, if you live to be 100, I hope I live to be 100 minus 1 day, so that I never have to live a day without you. And that's so beautiful. Like I would tell Paresh, if there comes a day when we cannot be together, keep me in your heart, I'll stay there forever. That's what I told him as a teenager. So it's such a beautiful book. It has so much, like, all these quotes and the fun that happens in the book and the craziness that happens. But beyond that, when you look in depth into what I think the author is just mind-blowingly great. Because you see, it's a book for all levels. And now I will talk to you about as a researcher. And you're suddenly going to stop saying, oh, so sweet, so sweet, you sense, oh, okay. Now, Winnie the Pooh and Piglet Go Hunting. And that chapter is called Winnie the Pooh and Piglet Go Hunting and Nearly Catch a Woozle. So there is a tree, the Pooh is walking, and he says, Piglet, I'm chasing this animal. So Piglet says, what are you going to call it? So he says, let's call it the Woozle. And I'm catching it, I'm going to track it. And I'm going to catch this animal. So they go round, and they don't realize they're going round a tree. And then the footsteps increase, and they say, do you think there are more woozles? And they're just going round and round and round. Do you know what is the first lesson in this? Is that Winnie the Pooh and Piglet did not know themselves. They could not recognize their own paw marks. Because obviously it's their own paw marks that they're chasing. So how about learning about yourself? And then you would not be chasing woozles because it's your footsteps, and then you're not scared anymore when you know it. And then Christopher Robin, sitting on the top of the tree, says, after a long time, do you know you're just going round and round? One of the most wonderful things in action. When you want to reflect, you cannot look at yourself, reflect. You have to step out and look at yourself, see your actions, and then reflect on that. So what is reflection? Reflection is meta thinking, thinking about thinking, and you cannot do that if you're just sitting there. You need to write down what you were thought about, step out, look at your thoughts, and then reflect on it and go deeper and deeper and deeper. So it's about understanding, a higher psychological process of learning, having a vision. Now, can you imagine Winnie the Pooh taught me that? There's another very important thing about the same chapter, which I will tell you, which is in research. So if there's anybody in research over here, you're going to be a little stunned about it. In fact, in science, it is used to describe a problem that happens when publications are cited by other publications that don't have evidence and mislead people into believing there's proof out there for a point of view and turns the fact into superstition, the Woozle effect, and it has come from Winnie the Pooh. What about creative problem solving? In the first story, Pooh goes, he has a and he wants to find honey. And so he goes looking for honey, and then he sees this, the bees are there right up on the tree. And he says, how am I going to go there? Because I cannot climb the tree. If I do, the bees are going to bite me. So what am I going to do? And his creative problem solving, he says, I'm going to blow up a balloon and go up with that balloon and go to the beehive and get the honey. Now, green balloon. So he asked Christopher Robin, what do I do? Which one should I use? And Christopher Robin very wisely tells him that, when you're going honey hunting, you need to disguise yourself. So if you have a green balloon, you will be seen. But if you have a blue balloon against the sky, the blue balloon is not going to be seen. So I think you should have a blue balloon. So how is that for, looking into research? So so we don't have to be apart for so long. If we are in each other's dream, we can be together all the time. I'm going to end with that.
Wow, so as I said before, right? The way you think and the way I think, I used to think they're so contrasting, but right now you're proving it again. It's so complimentary.
It's the same. It's just different,
Yeah. So beautifully complimenting. So that whole question today actually got merged for me. Do I read fiction or do I read non-fiction? It's like it's the same. It's like drives you what you read.
Yes.
It's so beautifully done, and all your books happen to be non-fictions, and for me it's non-fictions. It's like and it got merged today so beautifully, and thanks for doing that. So Rashu, I think we have a question with somebody, or do
yes, we have a written question, and we have Nidhi. I'll ask Nidhi to switch on her mic and ask the question.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity. So I want to ask, could you just give us a few pointers about how do we help a child express themselves and open about their feelings? In my awareness, I'm doing pretty much everything I can do to help my child, but I feel that he's still very shy about opening about his feelings. And this eye contact of the comfort level of the child.
Okay, so very quick ones, okay?
Sushant, I want to answer this
sure.
a little before you say that.
Sure.
Is needy, just don't make such a big deal about it. You just let that person have his time to grow up. And this takes me a little to the last book you talked about, the first person who answers and the second person who answers. So all our schools and, the fashion is to have the circle, and everybody would sit in the circle and talk. So we would do that, And I realized that there were many of my students who would never talk in a circle. So I broke the circle and I just let everybody bunch up together, life skills, and they all bunched up together. And I found my quiet students would be in the back, hiding behind the other people, answering questions very well. So, this first, last, second, it doesn't work. Me, for example, I was a very, very quiet person, very shy. Nidhi, I think every child needs a pace of, each child has their own pace of growing up. So, be around for them, listen to them, talk to them, but let them, grow up at their own time. When I became Miss India, Sushant, you would be students said, you cannot imagine that our classroom mouse became Miss India.
Thanks for getting that done. So Nidhi, just to add,
please, yes.
Add a word to this, okay? Comparisons is what I would say. Take them off. Your child has a life of her own path, and she's unique. There is no one in the world like her. Nobody. So if you can just let her be her, she will. All of us learn how to walk. We don't learn to walk on the same day. All of us learn to talk. We don't walk and talk in the same time. So let that be. And one thing, we all talk about how can I make my child to learn about feelings. I tell you what, these things are not values, styles are not taught, they're taught. If you can start sharing about your feelings, talk about your difficulties, talk about your dark side, talk about your sadness, your anxieties, talk about your crying out. It's okay to cry on the shoulder of a 3-year-old. I'm talking about a 3-year-old. It's perfectly fine. You pouring out, and you will see the magic happening on the other side. So I think this is food for thought enough for a few months, right? Now we move to the last books. The last one, I know I'll take just a minute to talk about it. Again, the title of the book says it all. It says, first break all the rules. This was amazing because what it opened up for me was human beings made rules. We made rules to make our life fun, exciting, engaging, purposeful. We made money to make our life easier. We made all that stuff. We were the creators, but ended up being on the receiving end of the same rules, being on the receiving end of money, being on the receiving end of what we created. We forgot that we were the creators. So there's no rules were created for us, by us, to make our life smoother, easier, simpler, better. So if any rules, constraints, take it away, throw it away. So when I entered this whole zone of nurturing children, everybody, I had to work with women. There was no men in this industry. You know, what are you doing here? No one. Nurturing doesn't come to men. It comes to women. I said, no, it doesn't. Dropping stuff, doing all that stuff, just break it away. Guys, rules were made by us for us to make free, easy life. So this is what just blew it up for me. I think that's a mantra of my life, all of this together. Over to you, Suru, for your last one.
My most favorite, Man's Search for Meaning. It's a psychological memoir. And I'm going to begin by one beautiful quote, which is just one line. There are lots of quotes I have for you today.
Finally, a non-fiction.
It's not a non-fiction. It's purely, it's a memoir. And it's a memoir which is written of his life in the concentration camp. So they're all real life stories, but they're still stories. And about how the camp tore open human souls and exposed it to the depths. Awesome. So the line is, for those who have a why to live, can bear with almost anyhow. Oh my God, that is such an incredible line. And the next one, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And then he talks of 3 ways that made meaning possible. One was purposeful work, which Shashank talked about, which gets us up in the morning and thinks, oh my God, I have so many million children's lives to change. I can't sleep. I have to get up. I have to work. How am I going to do it differently? The next is love. The love that goes far beyond the physical person of the beloved. It finds its deepest meaning in his spiritual being, in his inner self. Whether or not he's actually present or whether or not he's still alive, ceases somehow to be of importance. His love for his wife in the concentration camp when they were separated in different camps, and how he survived just because of his love for his wife. Wow. And the courage in the face of difficulties is, there can be no difficulty you cannot overcome if you see that meaning to live on. And, it's like you just refuse to accept and expect from life, I need to give up. Life never ceases to have meaning. Even suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning. And love is the ultimate and the highest goal to which you can aspire. Happiness cannot be pursued. It must ensure as a side effect of a reason to be happy. And so this kind of destroys a lot of things that, people say that, oh, you can be happy. So do you just become happy like that? Life without really having a goal? No, you don't. What about this line, when you have a reason, when you have a why to live for. And it's so beautiful. It's like, the grandmothers and the old ladies in our house who have to get up in the morning to get that milk and boil it because, my grandson has to go to school. That's the meaning of life. Like my grandmother had to go to the mandir. She had to go to the Derasar or the Haveli as it is called. और कृष्णा जी को उठाना पड़ेगा. जैसे अगर वो गई नहीं और मंदिर का घंट नहीं बजाया, कृष्णा जी उठे नहीं तो सोते रहेंगे. But she had to do that, and it was such a beautiful meaning in life. So I think this is one of the biggest and the most beautiful lessons I learned from reading this book. And anybody who hasn't read it, I think just put all Shashank's and my books aside and just read this, Man's Search for Meaning. Like that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful passage in that chapter where that girl says, there is that tree and it has a leaf. And I'm thinking, I've led a life which had no meaning. And suddenly I found a meaning to my life. In the worst circumstances, in the concentration camps. I think that's one of the most beautiful one. And at this time, when we are in this suffering of the pandemic and the COVID-19, I think this book has a great meaning about the possibility of finding love, of finding a reason to live, finding purposeful work, service for the nation. I think that's such a beautiful thing. I think this is the book everybody should read because, especially in these dark days, this is the one that will help you really find meaning to your life. Over to you.
Great. Rashi, over to you.
Yes, wonderful. Swarupji, I didn't feel like talking. Amazing, amazing, indeed. In fact, I have a couple of lines from Emily Dickinson on this, but I'll conclude the session with that.
Okay.
And that's also a tribute to you being in the session. Sushant, while we are exceeding, I'll just like to take quick question by Tatla. Venki, I think Venki is here. Yeah, Venki. So Venki is a CBL patron and he's part of a lot of our programs. He's asking a very interesting and pertinent question. In conversation with my friend on this, he said, if apes are good parents and they don't read books, why should we read books? Do we get confused by many different thoughts and philosophies? As someone who reads a lot of books myself, what can be our response to this doubting parent or similar doubting parents? So Venki also heads CREA, which is a learning organization for kids, and hence the perspective.
Thanks, Venki, for putting us in a spot, but I love to be.
No, I'm not in a spot. Sorry, you are in a spot.
I love to do that.
This had to happen.
You want to start off?
You go, and I will go after that.
Okay. So, Venki, for me, I don't know what. So it's a matter of evolution. It's a matter of learning. It's a matter of how human beings can learn from each other, and books is purely a medium where I can just write it and it stays beyond me, beyond my life, for everybody to gather from. So, as a human being, it's an evolution. Learning from each other, using everybody's experience to make sure we support each other and be together. And that's what I think the meaning of human beings are. We are social animals. We can't stay alone. So bringing all of it together, and books is a beautiful medium. These names I don't even know which countries these people are from. The books I shared and book Swaroop shared, I didn't even know. But that access brings us so much of richness. And my life would have been incomplete without these ones. And I have millions of them. You can see right at the back. It's all there. And yes, apes may not need it, sure. But as human beings, we keep evolving. We've complicated our lives with these smartphones, with accesses, with stuff. We need to keep learning and keep growing and keep evolving. So I would say, put the doubt aside, take it on, try it on as the way we try on a lot of stuff. We go to a market, we try a coat, we don't like it, we hang it. So take it as try it on. If you like it, take it away. If you don't, hang it and move on.
So I will say something totally different. First of all, I did not say I do not have apes in my logo, and I don't have non-fictions in my list, because I believe the human beings live storied lives. So it's not about books, you see. It's about the stories that are telling, and it's the stories that are very important. And we learn from stories and we tell stories. So I think that is important.
We stick to our guns, Rup. You're so contrast and yet complimenting.
So it's about reflections, you learn from that. So our stories talk about experiences, but experience is not learning. Reflection on experience is learning, like I talked about in this Winnie the Pooh thing. It's just reading the book or listening to a story is not learning.
And what you bring
But when
in
you
yourself.
reflect on it,
Absolutely.
that is the learning.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks. Sushant, one last question very briefly. I'd really want you to answer this. How do we make our children free from online screen time is a concern these days?
Arey baap re.
I'm
A
going to say this
quick
first.
response.
Very quick response is give them so much to do otherwise. Like even now, I had my children when they were growing up, they literally were allowed only half an hour TV time. But I gave them so much to play, so much to read, so much of time I spent with them. So it's not like, put it nanny and, like, okay, somebody else will do it for me, tuition teachers. No, I was there for them. And I don't think anybody can beat parents. So child, I cannot be better than you for your child. So that's what I think. Very short. So Shant, over to you.
Okay, so very not a simple question given the kind of complexities it's gone into, and sort of our time was very, very different. These times are different. Our children are on screen for food, for school, for entertainment, for engagement, for talking to their friends. That's the only way they can socialize, especially for the last 1.5 years. So there is a process, but I can tell you very simple, and the answer actually lies in what Sarup also said. If we realize what the reason, if we know what the reason is behind, the reason is very simple. It's engagement.
Yeah.
It's fun, it's excitement, it's going with people, getting those fun, that bursting their stress. And I'm sure each one of you knows more ways, and your children knows more ways also to do all of that. Engagement, fun, excitement, stress busting, being alone, me time. It could be painting, it could be singing, it could be doing whatever. Don't replace that by the screens. Add that, and I'm repeating, add that into their life. We all have 24 hours. That's a fix. If you add one more activity, something has to reduce. Don't look at reducing screen. Look at adding more fun, more excitement, more engagement, and books, my dears, would be great. And I'll tell you, my children, when we go out for holidays or anywhere, we have 4 books plus 4 Kindles packed first before we pack our.
Same here. Same here.
And it's not because I told them. It's like we read. So fill ask them to fill up their work, their day with more stuff. You will see screens going down automatically. Don't force them to go to screens, because then you will become their biggest enemy. Don't do that. Don't ask them to reduce. Add. You can join us for the program. We'll walk you through this. There's lots of there for parents. We really need to wean them off from screens. It's damaging, guys. It's really damaging. It's the next pandemic to happen. It's already started.
Thanks, Sushant. Indeed, I vouch for what Sushant is sharing, because every advice in the course that he designs is very pertinent and practical. You apply it and you see the results. You apply it and you see the results. So must attend course, and a lot of wisdom to get from Sushant's experience. What a wonderful session, Sarupji and Sushant. So much insight from books. But then I'll conclude. So this is a tribute to Sarupji, who is a storyteller, somebody you really look up to for stories and the way you see books and stories. So exhilaration is within. Exhilaration is within. There can be no outer wine so royally intoxicate as that diviner brand. So this is another one by Emily
Emily
Dickinson.
Dickinson.
So that's also for you, Sushant, for you students and all
And
our
for
wonderful
everyone.
audience, that we will not stop. We will have a monthly session of Ma every month, bringing in new conversations, new perspectives, and a new way to look at books, and all that assimilating into us and our kids. So thank you
Thank
once
you very
again.
much.
Thanks,
Thank you very
Suruji.
much.
Thank you. Our
Bye. See you.
gratitude.
Bye.
Yeah.